so we decided to visit KupoCon in Glasgow this year as our first ever con of this type. And luckily enough, it was a Final Fantasy convention. So we flew out to Glasgow from Iceland. And then when we landed in Glasgow, it was raining heavily, and my luggage at least ended up getting very wet, and I had to dry all my clothes at the hotel. So when we first started the channel, what really surprised us was that we weren't just making videos, we were entering a community of Final Fantasy fans that we started to interact with, and those interactions became a much bigger part of the experience, our YouTube journey, than we had anticipated. So going to KupoCon or any convention that was covering Final Fantasy really was an attempt to go to a place and to meet people physically as a sort of extension of this being a part of the community.
To be perfectly honest, I'd never heard of KupoCon, but my brother suggested it, and here we are. Was KupoCon my first con? Yes, it was. I think it might have been a good idea to start with something small scale like this, instead of jumping right into the large conferences.
So we went there with big plans of interacting with a lot of people, and those plans sort of fell flat when we entered the venue and realized or remembered that we are actually quite shy, in a lot of ways at least when it comes to talking to strangers in small spaces, cramped groups.
Did I interact with a lot of people? Not as much as I would have liked. We had big plans to sort of talk to people, be more outgoing and get some interviews. Turns out we're not really good at that, and it's something we have to build up as a skill, I think, which was quite eye-opening. It didn't help that the venue was on the smaller side, and it was hard to sort of take people aside and say hi and get a photo or a video, because everyone's sort of back to back and a bit like sardines, to be honest.
I thought the venue was very fancy. It was at the Hilton, but at the same time it was a bit too small, I think, for a group of that size. They did limit the number of people, but I still felt that it was a little bit too small, because there was no place where you could sort of talk to people in private, in a way. You're always there sort of in the thick of things.
Did people react to our sweaters? So we had these sweaters made just for fun and for ourselves. We were hoping it would be a bit of a conversation starter. Turns out it really wasn't, not during the daytime at least. During the evening, we had some nice chats about it, and people were very receptive and nice, and maybe we even gained a sub or two. Maybe.
It wasn't like, oh, you're the birds of play. It was more like, what are you wearing? And then we had to explain it, and then people were generally quite, well, all of them were quite positive about it, I think.
Was it a welcoming experience? For the most part, yes, I think so. One of the 3 pillars Alex, the founder, talked about during his opening speech was inclusivity, which obviously entails including people and perhaps inviting people over for a chat or to take part in an activity. It's sort of our fault that we didn't really interact with people that much. We were wearing our sweaters, we had a large camera, and maybe people felt we were a bit standoffish, because it was a new experience for us, and maybe just a bit intimidating, to be honest.
I'm here to bring you despair.
It was a very welcoming experience, I think, but at the same time, it wasn't welcoming in the sense that we, us ourselves, weren't able to fully embrace it, I think. So that's something that maybe would come with more practice. I had more fun during the evening.
It definitely got a lot more fun as the day passed, and once it got to the evening schedule, we could let loose a little bit more. Meet some friends we had only interacted with online, and that was really special. We had a chance to meet Motion Melvin, the voice actor for Jack from Stranger of Paradise. Who's really nice, and you could really feel his enthusiasm and energy and how happy he is to be a part of this Final Fantasy community. We also finally met MJ Gallagher, who's a long-time Twitter friend and one of the few people actively publishing books about Final Fantasy, both sort of fan fiction and more academic writings. He was a hoot and a half. Mo? He introduced us to a lot of people, and it definitely made the evening more special.
I thought the evening was maybe a lot more fun because you got to let loose, you got to have a few drinks and just have fun. It was a lot easier to talk to people during the evening as well. Yeah, and not just the normal people, but also the very, very famous people.
There was a short break between the day and the evening. We went for a couple of drinks, loosened up a bit, and then came back. There were fewer people during the evening because not everyone who attends the day event goes to the evening event. Did some dancing, had more drinks, so we definitely had, I think, I can speak for us both, a lot more fun during the evening.
But what I would have really liked to see was this sort of being a 2-day thing, because it starts out a little bit awkward and then it gradually becomes less and less awkward, and then during the evening it's not awkward at all in a way. So I would have liked to see that continue into the next day and sort of reap the rewards of having gotten to know everybody a little bit better.
The most memorable event of the whole thing was probably most definitely Susan Calloway's concert. It's a very intimate concert. She had done an arrangement of Eyes on Me from Final Fantasy VIII for the anniversary of Final Fantasy VIII, and it was a beautiful arrangement, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the whole auditorium.
When she was doing her rendition of Eyes on Me from Final Fantasy VIII, which was really great, I think, I caught myself sort of looking across the room, a large auditorium or a large hall filled with people that were there because they were Final Fantasy fans, and they were sort of entranced by her music. But I was sort of entranced by them in a way, because I caught myself thinking, what does Final Fantasy really mean to all of these people, and what does Final Fantasy really mean to me? Like, Final Fantasy has been a part of my life for a very long time, and now we're doing a Final Fantasy YouTube channel even where we are sort of diving even deeper into this franchise or this series. And even though I have done so much work on Final Fantasy, I haven't really come to terms with what the series really means to me. So that's something that I'll have to think about more as we move forward, and maybe understanding what Final Fantasy means to other people is a sort of key to that.
So the quest log is this very particular KupoCon thing, which sort of sets it apart from other cons. There's a bunch of activities and quests that you can do and earn gil. And with that gil you can buy merch or just keep the gil. It's actually quite nice looking. And during the day we had a lot of fun with that. We could just sort of keep busy for filling out the quest log and getting money and exchanging it for prizes. A lot of the quests sort of build on meeting new people, taking photos with new people, which, you know, isn't the easiest for everyone, including us. I'm sure if we would have asked people, it would have been no problem, but it was a bigger hurdle than we thought it would be.
So this was probably one of the most interesting things for me. So they have this card game called Tripom, based on Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII. And they have these custom cards that they made. And I could really see myself getting into playing this a little bit. And I really wish that Square Enix would make an official Triple Triad analog game.
So Triapalm is this card game that's essentially Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII, and they have these custom-made cards that they sell at the menu. And we played a few games, and it's pretty fun.
I liked Glasgow, and we did a little tour with this hop-on, hop-off sort of tourist bus. And we also spent a fair amount of time downtown. And we became fairly familiar with downtown Glasgow to the extent that we don't really need a map anymore, which was quite fun, even though we were just here for a relatively short time. It was really interesting when we went on the bus. We stopped at the Glasgow Cathedral and the Necropolis, which is a sort of big graveyard on a hill. And that was a really interesting sight in a way, which will stay with me for the rest of my life. Maybe.
Well, I gather February isn't the best month to visit, but people keep telling me the weather's always like this, so maybe it's just like any other month. It was wet and windy and brown.
I think I would definitely go again. But the biggest hurdle is, of course, just money in a way. For us, it costs a lot of money to fly to a different country to attend, and also just participating in the convention also costs some money. But it was definitely a positive experience and one that I would like to revisit at a later date. So we will be looking for a chance to do that, whether that is KupoCon or something else.